The emergency signal cut through the void like a scream in the darkness. Ambassador Xylith clutched her communication tablet with trembling claws as the desperate message played for the third time in the past hour. Her ship, the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Grace, drifted helplessly in space with failing life support and damaged engines. "To any civilized species within range," the message began, her voice cracking with fear. "This is Ambassador Xylith of the Caloran Republic. Our ship has suffered critical damage from pirates. We are stranded in the Outer Rim territories with wounded aboard. We request immediate assistance from any peaceful, advanced civilization. Please help us." What Xylith didn't know was that her distress call had reached the edge of a solar system marked on no galactic map. A system that housed a species the galaxy had only heard whispers about, a species from a world so violent and dangerous that most civilized races refused to believe the stories. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the UNS Retribution, watching the translation software work through the alien message. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency, their faces grim but determined. The bridge hummed with quiet activity as officers ran diagnostics and prepared response protocols. "Sir, we've confirmed the signal's origin point," reported Lieutenant Torres from her station. "Unknown vessel, approximately 40,000 kilometers from our patrol route. Sensors show significant damage to their hull and multiple life signs aboard." Chen nodded, studying the holographic display that showed the alien ship. It was elegant in design, all flowing curves and organic shapes that spoke of a peaceful people, nothing like the angular, armored vessels of his own species. "Any signs of the attackers?" Chen asked. "Negative, sir, but we're picking up debris fields that suggest a recent battle. Whoever hit them is long gone." Chen turned to his communications officer. "Can we understand their language?" "The AI has been working on it, sir. They're speaking something called Galactic Standard. Apparently, it's a trade language used by multiple species. We should be able to communicate." The captain considered his options. First contact protocols were clear, but this was a rescue situation. Lives hung in the balance, and the humans had never been ones to ignore a call for help, regardless of who was making it. "Open a channel," Chen ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the alien ship. The being on the other end was unlike anything in human imagination. Xylith stood nearly 7 feet tall, with blue-scaled skin that shimmered in the emergency lighting. Her large, dark eyes held an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient, and her forearms moved gracefully as she worked at her controls. When she saw Chen appear on her screen, those dark eyes widened in shock. Her translator struggled for a moment before her words came through clearly. You received our call?" she asked, her voice filled with hope and confusion. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the United Nations ship." "Retribution," he replied calmly. "We received your distress signal. What is your condition?" Xylith's relief was visible even across species lines. "Captain Chen, I am Ambassador Xylith of the Caloran Republic. We have wounded aboard, and our life support is failing. But I must ask, what species are you? I do not recognize your ship design or your appearance." Chen glanced at his crew, knowing this moment would be recorded in history books. "We're humans, from the planet Earth, and we're here to help." The alien ambassador's expression changed to one of confusion, then growing alarm. "Humans? From Earth? But that's impossible. Earth is listed in our databases as a death world. No intelligent life could evolve there." A murmur ran through the human bridge crew. Chen raised his hand for silence before responding. "I assure you, Ambassador, we're very much alive and intelligent. Now, what kind of help do you need?" Xylith seemed torn between gratitude and terror. Her 4 hands moved nervously over her controls as she processed this information. Captain, with respect, our records indicate that Earth has a gravity 3 times galactic standard, violent weather patterns, dangerous predators, and an atmosphere that would be toxic to most civilized species. How could you possibly have evolved there? Chen couldn't help but smile slightly. Ambassador, I think there might be some misunderstandings in your databases. But right now, let's focus on keeping you and your crew alive. We're sending a rescue shuttle to your position. Wait, Xylith said quickly, her voice rising in pitch. Your people, are they violent? Our records suggest that any species from such a world would be extremely aggressive and dangerous. The question hung in the air for a moment. Chen looked around his bridge at his crew, all of whom had volunteered to serve in deep space, far from their families, to explore and protect. They were warriors, yes, but they were also healers, scientists, and diplomats. Ambassador, Chen said carefully, we are what our world made us. But right now, what our world made us is people who answer distress calls. Will you accept our help? Xylith's translator was silent for a long moment as she considered. Finally, she nodded slowly. Yes, Captain. We accept your assistance, but I must warn my crew. They may be frightened. Understood. Our medical team is prepared to treat your wounded. We'll have you aboard our ship within the hour. As the channel closed, Chen turned to his crew. You heard the lady. Prep medical bay for alien physiology. I want our best people on this. And someone get me a line to Admiral Torres back home. She's going to want to know about this. Lieutenant Torres looked up from her station. Sir, should we be concerned about their reaction to us? They seem pretty scared of humans. Chen nodded thoughtfully. They should be scared, Lieutenant. We are from a death world. We are apex predators who learn to cooperate. But that's exactly why they need us right now. Sometimes you need predators to deal with other predators. On the alien ship, Xylith was addressing her crew over the internal communication system. The medical bay was filled with her people, some injured from the pirate attack, others simply seeking the comfort of numbers. My friends, she began, her voice steady despite her fears, we have been offered rescue by a previously unknown species. They call themselves humans, and they claim to be from Earth. A collective gasp ran through the assembled Colorans. Dr. Yenth, the ship's physician, stepped forward. Ambassador, surely you're not considering accepting help from Deathworlders? The stories we've heard are just stories until proven otherwise, Xylith replied firmly. These humans responded to our distress call when no one else did. They could have simply ignored us or attacked us while we're helpless. Instead, they're offering medical assistance. Engineer Crix, his usually green scales pale with fear, spoke up. But what if this is how they hunt? What if they're just playing with us? Xylith had wondered the same thing, but something in the human captain's manner suggested otherwise. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Right now, we have 3 crew members who won't survive another hour without proper medical attention. Would you have me let them die because of rumors? The medical bay fell silent. Everyone knew that the ship's medical supplies had been destroyed in the pirate attack. Without help, they would indeed lose their wounded friends. Besides, Xylith added, if these humans wanted to harm us, they wouldn't need to pretend to rescue us first. Our weapons are offline, and our shields are down. We're completely at their mercy already. As if summoned by her words, the ship's sensors detected an approaching vessel. Through the viewports, they could see a sleek shuttle detaching from the massive human ship. It moved with a grace that spoke of advanced technology, but also with a purposefulness that reminded them all that this was a military vessel. The human shuttle docked with their ship with mechanical precision. Xylith made her way to the airlock, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and terror. Behind her, several of her crew followed at a distance, ready to witness first contact with a species that shouldn't exist. The airlock cycled, and Xylith found herself face to face with her first human. Dr. Sarah Kim was smaller than Xylith had expected, standing only about 5.5 feet tall. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style, and she wore what was obviously a medical uniform. Behind her stood 2 other humans carrying equipment that was clearly designed for emergency medical treatment. "Ambassador Xylith?" Dr. Kim asked, her voice calm and professional. "I'm Dr. Sarah Kim, Chief Medical Officer of the Retribution. We're here to help your wounded." What struck Xylith most was not the alien appearance of the humans, but their eyes. They were predators' eyes, set forward in their skulls for tracking prey. But they also held an intelligence and compassion that seemed at odds with their Deathworld origins. "Dr. Kim," Xylith replied, gesturing toward the medical bay, "our wounded are this way. But I must warn you, our physiology may be very different from yours." Dr. Kim smiled, and Xylith noticed that humans had very sharp teeth. "Don't worry, Ambassador. We've studied your distress signals' biological readings. Our computers have already worked out the basics of your physiology. We're adaptable." As they moved through the ship, Dr. Kim's team worked with an efficiency that was both impressive and slightly terrifying. They asked quick questions about Caloran biology, adapted their equipment on the fly, and began treating the wounded with a competence that spoke of extensive experience. "How do you know so much about emergency medicine?" Xylith asked, as she watched Dr. Kim stabilize a crew member who had been bleeding internally. "When you live on a world where everything is trying to kill you," Dr. Kim replied without looking up from her work, "you get very good at keeping people alive. Your crew will be fine, but we need to get them to our medical bay for proper treatment." Within 30 minutes, the humans had stabilized all 3 wounded Calorans and were preparing to transport them. As they worked, more humans arrived to assist with repairs to the Caloran ship's life support systems. Chief Engineer Rodriguez introduced himself to Engineer Crix with a friendly smile that showed far too many teeth. "Don't worry about your ship," he said, already deep in analysis of the Caloran systems. "We'll have you running again in no time. Your technology is actually quite elegant." You understand our technology?" Crix asked nervously. Rodriguez laughed, a sound that made several Calorans step back. "Friend, we reverse-engineered faster-than-light travel from a crashed probe we found in our asteroid belt. Your stuff is advanced, but it's not magic." As the rescue operation continued, Xylith found herself in conversation with Captain Chen, who had come aboard personally to oversee the operation. "Captain," she said carefully, "I must ask, why are you helping us? In our experience, first contact between species is usually more complicated." Chen considered the question as he watched his crew work alongside the nervous Calorans. "Ambassador, where we come from, we have a saying, we're all just trying to get home. Your people are far from home and in trouble. That makes you our responsibility. But surely you must want something in return, technology, territory, trade agreements." "Right now, all we want is to make sure your people survive," Chen replied. "Everything else we can figure out later." Xylith studied the human captain's face, trying to understand this strange species. "Captain, our databases suggest that Deathworld species are inherently aggressive and territorial, yet you risk your ship and crew to help strangers." Chen smiled, and Xylith was beginning to understand that the expression wasn't a threat display despite the visible teeth. "Ambassador, you're not wrong about us being aggressive, but you're misunderstanding what we're aggressive about. We're aggressive about protecting people. We're territorial about the space around those who can't defend themselves. And right now, that includes you." The rescue operation was completed in under 2 hours. The wounded Kellerans were safely aboard the human ship receiving treatment, and the Harmony's Grace was running on temporary life support while human engineers worked to fully restore its systems. As Xylith prepared to join her wounded crew aboard the human vessel, she turned to Captain Chen one more time. "Captain, There's something you should know. When we sent that distress signal, we weren't just calling to anyone nearby. We were broadcasting on the galactic emergency frequency. Every civilized species in 3 sectors would have heard it. Chen's expression grew serious. And you were the only ones who answered? The weight of that statement hung between them as Xylith boarded the human shuttle. As they traveled to the Retribution, she looked out the viewport at the massive human ship. It was unlike any vessel in the galactic fleet, built for war but responding to a call for peace. Perhaps, she thought, the galaxy had been wrong about Deathworlders. Or perhaps they had been right, but wrong about what that meant. As the shuttle docked with the Retribution, Xylith prepared to become the first member of her species to set foot aboard a human vessel. She had no idea that her distress call had already been detected by other ships, or that the pirates who had attacked her were part of a much larger organization. Most importantly, she had no idea that her emergency transmission had not just reached one human ship, but had triggered something much larger. Deep in human space, military commanders were already plotting courses and calculating jump coordinates. The Deathworlders had heard the call, and they were coming. The medical bay of the UNS Retribution had been transformed into something resembling a cross-species emergency room. Dr. Kim moved between her patients with practiced ease, her human adaptability allowing her to treat alien physiology as if she had been doing it for years. The 3 wounded Kalorans lay on specially modified beds, their blue scales already showing better color as human medical technology worked to save their lives. Ambassador Xylith stood at the observation window, watching her people receive care that surpassed anything available on their own ship. The human medical staff worked with a combination of advanced technology and intuitive understanding that amazed her. "Your people are remarkable healers," she said to Captain Chen, who stood beside her. "We've had a lot of practice," Chen replied. "When you live on a world where a simple cut can become infected with flesh-eating bacteria, you get very good at medicine very quickly." Xylith shuddered at the casual way he described such horrors. "Captain, I've been thinking about what you said earlier about being aggressive in protecting people. Is that why you responded to our call?" Before Chen could answer, Lieutenant Torres's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, we're receiving multiple incoming signals. Long-range sensors are detecting ships approaching our position." Chen's expression immediately became serious. "How many ships, Lieutenant?" "Sir, I'm reading at least 15 vessels. They're not responding to our hails, and their approach vector matches the debris patterns from the original attack on the ambassador's ship." Chen turned to Xylith, his face grim. "Ambassador, I think your pirates have come back. Can you tell me anything about them?" Xylith's forearms moved nervously as she processed this information. They called themselves the Iron Claw Syndicate. They're raiders who prey on diplomatic vessels and trade ships. They demanded we surrender our cargo and our ship. "And when you refused?" "They attacked without further warning. Our ship is designed for diplomacy, not warfare. We barely escaped with our lives." Chen nodded and activated his communicator. "All hands, this is the captain. We have hostile forces approaching. Battle stations." The alert klaxons began to sound throughout the ship, and Xylith watched in fascination as the humans transformed from peaceful rescuers into a military force. The change was immediate and complete, like watching predators shed their disguise. "Captain," Xylith said urgently, "you should run. Take your ship and leave. The Iron Claw operates in large numbers, and they have no mercy. Your ship is alone." Chen smiled, that toothy human smile that was becoming familiar. "Ambassador!" "Who said anything about being alone?" Before Xylith could ask what he meant, Lieutenant Torres's voice filled the air again. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Sarah Torres aboard the UNS Vengeance. The Third Fleet has arrived." Xylith looked out the medical bay window and gasped. Space around them was suddenly filled with human ships. Massive battle cruisers, sleek destroyers, and ships of designs she couldn't even identify materialized as if from nowhere. The human fleet stretched as far as her eyes could see. How many ships? She whispered. 347, Chen replied casually. Give or take a few support vessels. The ambassador's legs nearly gave out. You brought an entire armada to rescue us. Actually, Chen corrected, we brought the armada because someone attacked you. The rescue was just the beginning. On the bridge, Admiral Torres's image appeared on the main screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had commanded respect for decades. Her eyes held the same predatory intelligence as her nephew's. Marcus, she said, situation report. Aunt Sarah, we've rescued the alien diplomatic vessel and are currently treating their wounded. 15 hostile ships are approaching, probably the same raiders who attacked them originally. Admiral Torres nodded. Any demands from the hostiles? None so far. They're maintaining communication silence. Understood. We've analyzed the wreckage from their original attack. These pirates have been operating in this sector for months, hitting civilian targets. It ends today. Xylith, who had been listening to the conversation, stepped forward. Admiral, please, you don't understand. The Iron Claw Syndicate has backing from the Hegemony Council. They're not just pirates, they're part of a larger political structure. If you attack them, you'll be starting a war. Admiral Torres studied the alien ambassador for a moment. Ambassador, what's your name? Xylith, Admiral. I represent the Caloran Republic in diplomatic matters. Well, Ambassador Xylith, let me explain something about humans. We don't start wars, but when someone attacks innocent people, we finish them. As if summoned by her words, the pirate fleet dropped out of hyperspace in formation. 15 ships, ranging from modified cargo vessels to purpose-built raiders, arranged themselves in an attack pattern clearly designed to overwhelm a single target. The lead pirate ship opened communications, and a brutish alien face appeared on the screen. The being had gray skin, multiple eyes, and tusks that suggested a carnivorous species. When he spoke, his voice was harsh and filled with arrogance. Unknown vessel, the pirate captain snarled. You are in possession of stolen property belonging to the Iron Claw Syndicate. Surrender the Caloran ship and prepare to be boarded. Captain Chen looked at the image with disgust. This is Captain Chen of the United Nations ship Retribution. The beings you claim are stolen property are under the protection of the United Nations. You will withdraw immediately. The pirate captain laughed, a sound like grinding metal. United Nations, never heard of you. You're outnumbered 15-1, little ship. Surrender now, and we might let you live to serve in our mines. Actually, Chen replied with that dangerous human smile, you're outnumbered 347-15. But who's counting? The pirate captain's multiple eyes widened as his sensors finally penetrated the human cloaking technology. The smile faded from his ugly face as he realized the scope of the force arrayed against him. This is impossible, he whispered. Where did they all come from? Admiral Torres's voice cut through the communication. This is Admiral Torres of the United Nations Third Fleet. You have 60 seconds to surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. Choose wisely. Xylith watched in amazement as the human fleet maneuvered with precision that spoke of years of training and coordination. Each ship knew exactly where it needed to be, and the entire formation moved like a single organism. Admiral, she said urgently, the Hegemony Council will not stand for this. They have ships, allies. You're starting something much larger than just dealing with pirates. Admiral Torres turned to face her, and Xylith saw something in the human's eyes that made her blood run cold. It wasn't anger or hatred. It was the calm certainty of a predator that had decided its prey was already dead. Ambassador, the Admiral said quietly, the Hegemony Council should have thought about that before they started sponsoring attacks on diplomatic vessels. The pirate captain, realizing his position was hopeless, tried one last desperate gambit. "You don't know what you're doing, humans. The Iron Claw has taken dozens of ships in this sector. We have hostages, slaves. If you attack us, they'll all die." This statement had an immediate effect on the humans, but not what the pirate expected. Instead of backing down, every human face on the bridge became stone-cold furious. Admiral Torres's voice, when she spoke, was like ice. "Location of the hostages, now." "As if I would tell you, Deathworlder scum." Admiral Torres nodded to someone off-screen. "Lieutenant Martinez, scan their ships. Find the life signs." Within moments, the human sensors had penetrated the pirate ships and identified dozens of non-human life forms in what were clearly prison cells. The sight of the scanner results made several human officers clench their fists. "Pirates," Admiral Torres announced over the fleet communication system, "you have just made the worst mistake of your very short remaining lives. All ships, precision strikes. Disable their weapons and engines, but do not harm the hostages. We're going to rescue every single one of those prisoners." What happened next was unlike anything in Xylith's experience. The human fleet moved with surgical precision, each ship targeting specific systems on the pirate vessels. Human weaponry, designed by a species that had learned warfare on a world where everything was trying to kill them, made short work of pirate defenses. Within minutes, the entire Iron Claw force was floating helplessly in space, their weapons destroyed and their engines offline, but their life support intact. Not a single pirate ship had been destroyed, but all 15 were completely helpless. "Boarding parties, go," Admiral Torres ordered. Xylith watched through the viewports as human marines launched from assault shuttles toward the disabled pirate ships. The boarding operation was swift and professional, and within an hour, reports began coming in over the communication system. "Admiral, this is Major Rodriguez. We've secured the first ship. 12 hostages recovered, all alive. Pirates in custody." "Admiral Lieutenant Smith reporting. Second ship secured. 23 hostages, including children. All safe." The reports continued, each one announcing more rescued prisoners and captured pirates. Xylith counted over 200 beings freed from the pirate ships, representing dozens of different species. "Captain," she said to Chen, who was coordinating the rescue operations, "this level of organization, this precision, how long have you been planning this?" Chen looked at her with confusion. "Planning what, Ambassador?" "This operation, this fleet response. You had hundreds of ships ready to move at a moment's notice." "Ambassador," Chen said patiently, "this is just standard procedure. When a human ship reports contact with hostiles, particularly hostiles threatening civilians, the nearest fleet responds immediately. We don't plan these operations. We just do them." Xylith felt a chill run down her spine. "Standard procedure? You mean you always respond to emergencies with this level of force?" "When necessary," Admiral Torres interjected, having heard the conversation. "Ambassador, let me ask you something. How many species responded to your original distress call?" "None," Xylith admitted quietly. "And how many species do you think will respond to the next distress call in this sector?" Xylith thought about it for a moment, then looked around at the human fleet that had appeared like an avenging army. "All of them, Admiral. Every single one." "Good." Admiral Torres nodded with satisfaction. "That's the point." As the rescue operations continued, Xylith found herself in conversation with Dr. Kim, who was treating some of the freed hostages. Many of them were in poor condition, having been held in terrible circumstances by the pirates. "Doctor," Xylith asked, "your people respond to distress calls from complete strangers, fight wars to free prisoners you've never met, and risk your lives for species you didn't know existed. Why?" Dr. Kim paused in her treatment of a young alien who couldn't have been more than a child. "Ambassador, On our world, we learned a long time ago that if you don't stand up to bullies, they just find more victims. The only way to stop them is to make the cost of bullying higher than they're willing to pay. But surely there must be limits to what you'll do for strangers. Dr. Kim smiled as the young alien patient's breathing stabilized. Ambassador, there are no strangers. There are only people we haven't helped yet. The final tally was staggering. Over 300 beings of 47 different species had been rescued from the pirate ships. The Iron Claw Syndicate, which had terrorized the sector for months, had been completely destroyed as a fighting force. Not a single human life had been lost, and collateral damage was minimal. As the fleet prepared to escort the rescued beings to safety, Admiral Torres called a final meeting with Ambassador Xylith. "Ambassador," she said, "we need to discuss what happens next. These pirates mentioned backing from something called the Hegemony Council. Can you tell me about them?" Xylith's expression grew troubled. The Hegemony Council controls trade and politics in this region of the galaxy. They're not officially connected to piracy, but they profit from the chaos it creates. They'll see your actions today as a direct challenge to their authority. Are they right? The directness of the question caught Xylith off guard. I'm not sure what you mean, Admiral." "Simple question, Ambassador. Do they sponsor piracy and slavery?" "Well, yes, but..." "Then yes, we're challenging their authority. In fact, we're going to end it." Xylith felt her world shifting beneath her feet. "Admiral, you can't just declare war on the Hegemony Council. They have hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. They've been in power for centuries." Admiral Torres smiled, that predatory human smile that was becoming all too familiar. "Ambassador, let me tell you something about humans. We've never met a bully we couldn't handle." As the conversation ended, Xylith made her way back to the medical bay where her crew was recovering. The wounded Calorans were doing well under human medical care, and spirits were high as word spread of the successful rescue operation. "Ambassador," called Dr. Yenth, the ship's physician, "this is remarkable. The human medical technology has healed wounds that would have taken months to recover from. And their doctors have been sharing their techniques with me." "That's wonderful, Doctor," Xylith replied. But her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about the implications of what she had witnessed. A species that responded to distress calls with fleets, that treated strangers with their most advanced medical care, that went to war to free slaves they had never met. Engineer Crix approached her with his own report. "Ambassador, the humans have completely rebuilt our damaged systems, but more than that, they've improved them. Our engines are now 30% more efficient, and they've installed some kind of defensive system they call point defense." "Did they ask for anything in return?" Xylith asked. "Nothing, Ambassador. They said it was professional courtesy between engineers." Xylith made her way to the observation deck, where she could see the human fleet in all its terrible glory. Hundreds of ships, each one representing a level of military capability that dwarfed anything in this region of the galaxy. Captain Chen found her there, staring out at the stars. "Penny for your thoughts, Ambassador?" "Captain, I've been wondering about something. Your people. You're not what we expected from a Deathworld species." "What did you expect?" "Conquest. Domination. We expected you to be like every other apex predator species in the galaxy, focused on taking what you want by force." Chen considered this for a moment. "Ambassador, there's something you need to understand about humans. We are apex predators, you're right about that. But we learned something that other predator species apparently didn't." "What's that?" "The most dangerous thing in the universe isn't a predator hunting prey. It's a predator protecting its pack." Xylith felt a shiver run through her as she understood the implications. "And you consider the entire galaxy your pack?" "We're working on it," Chen replied with that dangerous smile. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, carrying the rescued prisoners to safety and the captured pirates to justice, Xylith realized that her simple distress call had changed everything. The galaxy had called on the Deathworlders for help, and they had answered with a force that would reshape the balance of power forever. Behind them, in the wreckage of the pirate fleet, automated beacons were already broadcasting a message to anyone who might find them. The message was simple, recorded in dozens of languages. The United Nations protects the innocent. Pirates and slavers operate in this region at their own peril. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. Representatives from 47 species sat in stunned silence as the recordings played on the central display. The footage showed human ships moving with predatory grace, their weapons striking with surgical precision, and their boarding parties moving through pirate vessels like unstoppable forces of nature. Chancellor Vex of the Hegemony Council stood at the central podium, his tentacles writhing with barely controlled rage. The recordings had been playing for nearly an hour, showing every detail of the Iron Claw Syndicate's complete destruction at human hands. "This is unacceptable," Vex declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "These Deathworlders have destroyed legitimate salvage operations and imprisoned honest merchants." Ambassador Xylith, who had been called to testify about the events, stood to respond. In the weeks since her rescue, she had become something of a celebrity in the galactic community. The first being to make peaceful contact with the humans, she had spent every day since learning more about the species that had saved her life. "Chancellor Vex," she said calmly, "I was there. The Iron Claw Syndicate were not merchants. They were slavers and murderers. The humans rescued over 300 innocent beings from their ships." "Alleged innocent beings," Vex corrected sharply. "The Hegemony Council has trading agreements with the Iron Claw. Those beings were legitimate cargo." A murmur of disapproval ran through the chamber. Even species that regularly dealt with the hegemony found the open admission of slavery distasteful. "Cargo!" Xylith's voice rose in disbelief. "Chancellor, I saw the conditions those beings were kept in. They were prisoners, not cargo. Children were among them." "The internal affairs of hegemony space are not the concern of outsiders," Vex replied coldly. "What concerns this council is the unprovoked attack by an unknown military force on ships operating under legitimate salvage rights." At that moment, the chamber's communication system activated, and a new voice filled the air. Captain Chen's face appeared on the main display, transmitted from somewhere in deep space. "Chancellor Vex," Chen said politely, "I hope you don't mind the interruption. But I felt I should correct some misunderstandings in your testimony." The chamber erupted in chaos. Security officials scrambled to trace the signal while representatives shouted questions and demands. Chancellor Vex's tentacles turned a deep purple with rage. "How dare you interrupt these proceedings?" Vex roared. "This is a closed session of the Galactic Council." "Actually," Chen replied with that human smile that had become famous throughout the galaxy, "it's not. Your proceedings are being broadcast on 47 different networks across 30 systems. We've been watching." "Impossible. Our security is adequate for keeping out other galactic species," Chen interrupted. "We're not other galactic species." Admiral Torres stepped into view beside Chen, and Xylith felt a familiar chill at the sight of the human military leader. "Chancellor, we've been monitoring your communications for several weeks now. Your trading agreements with slavers, your profit-sharing arrangements with pirates, your systematic exploitation of weaker species, we have extensive documentation." "You're bluffing," Vex declared, but his voice lacked conviction. "Transcript Alpha 77, Torres said calmly. "Your conversation with Iron Claw Captain Brutus regarding the division of profits from the sale of Caloran prisoners, recorded 3 days before their attack on Ambassador Xylith's ship. Would you like me to play the audio?" Vex's skin turned pale gray. Around the chamber, representatives began looking at him with new understanding and disgust. "This is espionage," Vex protested. "Spying on the Hegemony Council is an act of war." "Monitoring criminal activity is law enforcement," Torres corrected. "And yes, Chancellor, it is an act of war. You declared it when you started sponsoring attacks on diplomatic vessels." "You cannot prove our involvement." Chen stepped forward, and his expression became deadly serious. "Chancellor, we can prove your involvement in 734 separate pirate attacks over the past 5 years. We have recordings, financial records, and testimony from rescued slaves. We know the locations of your training facilities, your supply depots, and your command centers. But more importantly," Torres added, "we've already begun acting on that information." The display changed to show real-time footage from across hegemony space. Human ships were emerging from hyperspace at dozens of locations, striking with the same precision they had shown in the rescue of Ambassador Xylith's ship. Pirate bases were being dismantled, slave ships were being captured, and prison facilities were being liberated. "This is happening right now," Chen explained to the stunned council. "Operation Clean Sweep began 12 hours ago. By the time this session ends, the Hegemony Council's piracy network will be completely dismantled." Representative Yala of the Zephyrian Collective stood up, her crystalline form sparkling with excitement. "The humans are actually doing it. They're ending the piracy problem that has plagued our trade routes for decades." "They're invading sovereign space," Vex shouted. "This is conquest, pure and simple." "No, Chancellor," Chen replied. "This is pest control." The display changed again, showing footage from inside one of the liberated facilities. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were being freed from prison cells, their chains cut by human marines who worked with mechanical efficiency and surprising gentleness. Ambassador Xylith watched the footage with tears in her eyes. She had seen human compassion firsthand, but the scale of their response still amazed her. They hadn't just answered her distress call, they had declared war on suffering itself. "The humans are offering immediate medical care to all freed prisoners," Chen continued his narration. "Transportation back to their home worlds and reparations for their suffering. The hegemony's stolen wealth is being redistributed to its victims." "You can't just steal our resources," Vex protested. "We're not stealing them," Torres replied coldly. "We're returning them to their rightful owners. Your resources were stolen from the people you enslaved." Representative Korth of the Mantis Coalition stepped forward. The insectoid being's compound eyes fixed on Chancellor Vex with obvious distaste. "Chancellor, the Hegemony Council has been exploiting smaller species for centuries. The humans are simply leveling the playing field." "The humans are Deathworlders," Vex screamed. "They're apex predators. Once they've destroyed us, do you think they'll stop? Do you think any of you will be safe?" The chamber fell silent as representatives considered this argument. It was, after all, the fear that had kept the galactic community from challenging the hegemony for so long. Better to deal with known predators than invite unknown ones. Ambassador Xylith stood again, her voice clear and strong. "Representatives, I have lived among the humans for weeks. I have seen their ships, their technology, their military capability. Chancellor Vex is right about one thing. They are apex predators." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. "But he's wrong about everything else," Xylith continued. "They are predators who hunt bullies. They are aggressive in defending the innocent. They are territorial about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "Pretty words," Vex sneered. "But predators are predators. They'll turn on you eventually." Dr. Kim's voice joined the conversation as she stepped into view on the display. "Chancellor, may I ask you something? In the 5 years your organization has been operating in this region, how many distress calls did you answer?" "That's not our function," Vex replied dismissively. "How many refugees did you feed? How many medical emergencies did you respond to? How many species did you help develop their technology or defend their space? The Hegemony Council provides order and stability. The Hegemony Council provides profit to its members by exploiting everyone else. Dr. Kim cut him off. In contrast, in the 3 weeks since first contact, humans have answered 14 distress calls, provided medical aid to 6 different species, shared agricultural technology with the Caloran Republic, and are currently in the process of liberating thousands of slaves. Because it serves their purposes, Vex insisted. Yes, Captain Chen agreed, stepping back into view. It does serve our purposes. Our purpose is to make the galaxy a place where people can live in peace. At the point of a gun, Vex accused. If necessary, Chen replied without hesitation. Chancellor, we tried to establish peaceful contact through Ambassador Xylith. We offered to open diplomatic relations, to share technology and resources. Your response was to send more pirates to attack our ships. The display showed new footage. Human vessels under attack by hegemony forces, human engineers sharing technology with grateful alien species, human doctors treating patients from dozens of worlds. We offered trade, Admiral Torres added. You chose war. We're simply better at it than you are. Representative Shal of the Aquatic Federation spoke up, her voice bubbling through her translation device. The humans have offered to share their medical technology with any species that wants it. They've asked for nothing in return except that we stop tolerating piracy in our space. They've offered to help us upgrade our defensive capabilities, added Representative Yala. Not to conquer us, but to help us protect ourselves. Chancellor Vex looked around the chamber, seeing the mood shifting against him. You're all fools. You're welcoming conquerors with open arms. No, Chancellor, Ambassador Xylith said quietly. We're welcoming protectors. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. The display changed one final time, showing Admiral Torres aboard her flagship. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring the ongoing rescue operations across hegemony space. Representatives, Torres addressed the council directly. I want to be very clear about something. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here because suffering is unacceptable and we have the ability to end it. What do you want from us? Asked Representative Korth. Nothing, Torres replied simply. We want you to be free, prosperous, and safe. We want your children to grow up in a galaxy where distress calls are answered, where pirates and slavers are extinct, and where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. And in return, nothing. We don't want territory, resources, or tribute. We want partners. We want friends. We want a galaxy full of species that choose cooperation over domination. And if we refuse, Chancellor Vex asked weakly. Then you'll be left alone, Chen replied. But you won't be allowed to harm others. The age of predator species ruling through fear is over, Chancellor. If you can't adapt to that reality, you'll be quarantined until you can. The council session continued for several more hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. By a vote of 46-1, with only the Hegemony Council representative dissenting, the Galactic Council officially recognized the United Nations of Earth as a legitimate governing body and welcomed them as members. The Hegemony Council's membership was revoked, and warrants were issued for the arrest of its leadership on charges of crimes against sentient beings. 6 months later, Ambassador Xylith stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Defense Station, a joint human-alien facility that served as headquarters for the Reformed Council's peacekeeping forces. Through the viewports, she could see ships from dozens of species working together on patrol duties. Captain Chen joined her at the observation window, now wearing the insignia of a Galactic Defense Force admiral. Any regrets about answering that distress call? Xylith asked. Chen smiled. Only one. I wish we'd been out here sooner. The galaxy is changing, Xylith observed. Trade routes are safe, Piracy has virtually disappeared, and 3 new species have achieved spaceflight with human assistance. It's a good start, Chen agreed. But there's still work to do. Such as? Chen gestured toward the star charts on the wall, showing unexplored regions of the galaxy. There are still species out there we haven't met. Still people who need help. Still bullies who think strength gives them the right to prey on others. Xylith laughed, a sound of pure joy. You humans are impossible. You've revolutionized galactic politics in less than a year, and you're already planning to do it again. Ambassador, Chen said with that predatory smile that had once terrified her and now filled her with confidence. We're just getting started. As they watched, a new ship arrived at the station. It was of unfamiliar design, broadcasting a distress signal in a language the translation computers had never encountered. Within minutes, human and alien rescue ships were launching to provide assistance. Somewhere in the depths of space, another species was about to learn that their distress call had been heard. They were about to discover that in this galaxy, help was always coming. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and the galaxy was finally becoming the place it was always meant to be. A community where the strong protected the weak, where cooperation triumphed over domination, and where no one suffered alone. It had all started with a single distress call and a species that couldn't ignore someone in need. Now, as the reformed Galactic Council expanded its reach and influence, that simple principle guided everything they did. When someone called for help, the galaxy answered. And at the front of every rescue mission, every peacekeeping operation, every hand extended in friendship to a new species, the humans of Earth led by example. They had come from a world that taught them that survival meant cooperation, that strength meant protection of others, and that the greatest victory was not conquest, but the choice to save a stranger. The galaxy had called on the Deathworlders for help, and they had answered with an armada. But more than that, they had answered with hope, compassion, and the unshakable belief that every sentient being deserved to live free from fear. In the end, that had made all the difference.